And with that, I will begin the 2021-2022 City Budget Committee meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. And before we begin, if we could all stand and either look at a flag that we have or envision one in our head, we'll go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent, thank you. And with that, we'll go ahead and start with our roll call attendance.
Well, I've got the roll call, so I'm not going to actually go through it.
Okay.
Right now, the mayor will not be here tonight and Councillor Bangs will not be here tonight. And it looks like we're still missing Councillor Parker and Councillor Spoon.
I
That is
just
correct.
texted them to see where they're at.
Yeah, Greg should be here. He
He thought he was in the waiting room. He's trying to get in, apparently.
okay. Does he need to be let in?
I didn't see him there.
Let me reload the information, he says. He's trying to get in. So if we can pause for a moment and see if we can get everybody in who's trying.
Sure, that's fine.
Better mute that.
And Jack, real quick, if you would remember, we're just we're muting ourselves unless we're talking. That way, in case there's any background noise, it doesn't come in. Thank you.
Okay, I got a picture Parker just sent me of his screen. He's having trouble getting in. It says the webinar is scheduled for 5:20. He's on the wrong one, I think.
Yeah, he's on the wrong one. Okay, hold on a second. Let me email him.
I just emailed him the link.
Yeah, let me just send him this just a second. Did someone say they just did it or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have not heard back from Sarah yet. Let me give her a quick call.
Where did that email go? Okay, well, we'll give it another minute here and then we'll get started so we can stay on time or
Okay,
close to it.
Yeah, Greg is trying to get in, as you know. As soon as he's on, we don't need to wait for Sarah. She's got a work issue, so I just got off the phone with her. She'll be 5 or so minutes and then she'll pop in.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Well, with that, then we will go ahead and move on to old business, which is the approval of the minutes from the May 21st, 2020 meeting. Can I entertain a motion to approve those minutes? Anybody?
I move that we approve the minutes from the prior meeting.
Been moved by Bob, seconded by?
Parker's in.
Oh, seconded by Greg. Is there any discussion or changes to the minutes? Okay, then all those in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by raising your hand in your video feed. All those opposed? There are no oppositions. Are there any abstentions? None noted. The minutes are approved. Moving on from there, we're going to go to new business, which is the election of the Budget Committee Chair.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
move to Melody Thompson as chair.
It's been moved by Counselor Hensley. Is it seconded by? Anybody?
Second.
Been seconded. Who was that?
John Varwig.
Sean, to nominate Melody Thompson. Melody, do you accept the nomination? Where'd she go?
She was here.
Yeah, she was. I don't see her in the thing anymore.
I'll be glad when Zoom World goes away. Melissa, find Melody.
We're looking, she's not on the waiting room list or anything, so I'm not sure what happened there. We'll keep an eye and see if she pops back in.
Okay.
Can someone maybe shoot her a text and help her out?
I don't know if I have her cell phone number.
Melissa, do you?
I can get in contact with her.
Yeah, we're working on getting in touch with her.
I thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll mute in the meantime.
Tracy, did you say you're knitting?
Knitting?
Yeah.
No,
Did I mishear that?
you must have.
Okay.
My
Yeah, I
mom
think she's.
knit when I was a child, but I have long since forgotten.
Yeah, I think she said she was muting herself.
I'm muting in the meantime, not knitting. Thank you, Jason.
You know, and the
Oh.
sad part is my insurance does cover hearing aids, so.
There you go. Okay, Melody is back. Melody, it has been moved by Counselor Hensley and seconded by Counselor Varwig to nominate you as the chair of the City Budget Committee. Do you accept the nomination? Can you hear me? Melody? Oh, that's right. She has a hard time.
Should we put it in the chat?
Yeah.
I'm on a tablet, so if you have a keyboard, that would be great if you could do that.
Okay, just a second. Nah.
Parker's screen say Jason Patton. That's funny.
I don't even know if she can see the chat. Do you have her, who has her phone number? We got to do this. We got to figure this out. We can't do it this way.
All right, hang on. The mayor might. Hang on a second. Let me call him.
Melody.
The mayor has the number. He's texting it to me. Hang tight.
Hello, Counselor Spoon.
Hi, I apologize for my tardiness. I had work.
It's fine. We're still dealing with other stuff. It's been, to bring you up to speed, it's been moved by Counselor Hensley and seconded by Counselor Varwig to nominate Melody as chair of the Budget Committee. And so we're in the process of getting her hooked up to audio so that we can have a conversation with her.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Melody, can you hear us?
I am just now logging into, hi, Counselor Hensley, just now logging into Zoom Cloud Meetings. I didn't have it on my phone. And so once I get that app on my phone, I will join the meeting because I'm logged into my email. Okay.
Can you at least hear us?
Yeah, you can hear me, but I can't hear you. And I'm not really sure why. Everything else works. And I did a Zoom meeting just yesterday. So it's kind of crazy. Maybe I don't know. Can't figure it out. So anyway, I'll try to get there from my email and we'll go from
Well,
there.
the thing is if she's going to be the chair of the meeting, she has to have a reliable connection. We cannot run the meeting
I would agree
by
with
holding
that.
up Post-it notes.
Yeah,
She's able to run our meeting.
Jason, she's getting the app downloaded as we speak.
I know. Andrea had held up a little note, and I was just making sure that people knew that we weren't going to be able to run the meeting that way.
As you're getting that downloaded, it was moved and seconded to nominate you as chair of the Budget Committee. Do you accept the nomination? Do you accept-
Okay, that's why everybody's waiting on me, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me get the agenda here. Do you want me just to do it on the phone and work on the fly here?
Well, we
We
just need to know if she accepts.
accept the nomination or not?
Okay, I'll accept the nomination. I
Okay.
will.
Thank you. Then, well, I'm going to hang up this and then you get that app going so we can hear each other through the Zoom.
Okay, will do. Hold on.
What's happening? Are we calling for a vote? Is there a question? I call the question.
So
Like, we just move
oh my
forward?
gosh, so it's been moved to nominate Melody Thompson as chair of the city budget committee, and it's been seconded, but she's having audio problems. So she's working on getting the audio fixed as soon as she has accepted the nomination, but as soon as she is voted in, she has to take over the meeting from me. So she has to have a reliable audio feed in order to do this. So that's what we're waiting for.
Here I am.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Sweet. So it is, as I've said a few times, Melody has approved, has accepted the nomination. Is there any discussion?
Yeah,
None
I will
noted?
say I'm sorry for the delay.
No, it's fine. These things happen. We got to sort it out. It's all good. So with that, all those in favor of
Wait,
Melody?
I have some discussion.
Huh?
I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Melody,
Spoon?
do you feel like you're prepared with technology to handle the meetings, and also you've had proper time to review the budget before we vote on you as chair?
Well, I've had proper time to review the budget. I'm very good at technology, which is why I don't understand why it's not accessing. The problem I have right now for this meeting is I'm hearing an echo. And so I think it'll be pretty uncomfortable for me to try and chair the meeting. Yeah, because I'm hearing myself talk and I don't think it's going to work. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want you to be uncomfortable. So okay.
So maybe I
Melody-
should decline the nomination and you all can go forward with another person.
Real quickly, Melody, are your speakers on your computer aren't on, correct?
They are on.
And have you tried turning your volume on your computer all the way down and just using your phone?
Yes.
Jason, did she decline the nomination as current chair? Did she decline the nomination?
I think I should, so that you can
Okay.
proceed expeditiously. Yeah.
Okay, then I nominate Jason Padden as chair of the budget committee.
Okay, well, okay, so it's Melody Thompson has declined the nomination. It's been moved by Counselor Spoon. Is there a second?
I second.
Counselor Tibbles had a question.
Oh, Counselor Tibbles had a question. Okay.
When we were just talking about technology, I was noticing that Melody is logged in twice. So if you scroll over, it looks like she almost has 2 logins, and that might be cause for the echo. But if we're already past that, that's why I raised my hand when that was in the discussion.
I think we're past that, but sometimes that happens because technology is complicated.
I did log out and log it back in an attempt to fix it. Yeah.
Is it still okay? So is there a second to nominate Jason Padden as president or chair of the budget committee?
Yeah, I second that.
It's been seconded by Melody Thompson. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Let me just scroll here to see if there's any hands up. I do accept. If that's the case, all those in favor of me being budget committee chair, signify by raising your hands or saying aye. Okay. All those opposed? Let's just see. Are there any oppositions? No oppositions. Any abstentions? I will abstain. With that, I will serve as chair again. Moving on, we will now elect a committee vice chair. Is there any nominations?
I nominate Tracy Hensley as vice chair.
It's been moved by Counselor Spoon to nominate, who was that again?
Tracy
Council
Hensley.
President Tracy Hensley.
Tracy Hensley, or Counselor or President Hensley as vice chair.
And
Is there a
Parker seconds that.
Counselor Parker seconds it. Is there any, first, Tracy, I'm assuming you accept?
I will accept that. Thank you,
She will
guys.
accept. Awesome. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Are there any objections? No objections. Any abstentions? None noted, and the motion carries. So with that, we will keep going here and we will give it back to City Hall first, I just wanted to recognize Counselor Parker. He has something he would like to say real quick before we begin the official budget info.
Under the order of point of personal privilege, as we get later on into the urban renewal budget, you're going to be hearing about $5 million that was generated by our finance director's efforts to refinance the urban renewal bonds. So it is a win-win. It saves us money, and it also allows us to conclude the urban renewal district and return the properties to full value at the earlier designated time. I'm particularly hard on city staff, having been one myself, so I thought it would be appropriate for me to say, Julie, thank you for the work on that. It's not everybody who gets to say, I not only made my salary this year, but for the next 300 years. So thank you on behalf of the city and hopefully the budget committee.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Good job.
And so with that, we'll throw it back to you to lead us off down the path of the budget.
Great. Can you, first of all, can you hear me okay? Great. We're a few feet away from the microphone and the speaker. I just want to make sure the clarity was good, and it looks like it is. So good evening, members of the City Council and Budget Committee. My name is Scott Archer. I'm the City Administrator. Other staff present with us this evening include Julie Blums, the aforementioned Finance Director, Joe Lindsay, our City Attorney and Assistant City Administrator, and Melissa Bissett, our City Recorder and HR Manager. I'm going to provide you an overview of the budget message, and then in a few minutes turn it over to Julie Blums to walk us through the specifics and the details of the budget. Before doing so, I want to acknowledge and thank the work of Julie and our entire finance team, all of our department directors and managers, and all other staff that participated in assembling this proposed budget document. Assembling this annual budget is a monumental accomplishment, and it requires a tremendous amount of time and effort, and it takes many people to make this happen. So we're thankful for everyone that had anything to do with that. I would also like to thank all of you, the mayor, who is not here tonight, I know, city council members and budget committee members for your time, dedication, and efforts in reviewing the document, listening to the staff this evening while you received the budget message and the staff report, your eventual deliberation and approval of the proposed budget so that we can present it to City Council for adoption in June. Our plan, or I should say our hope, is to complete the process of presenting and approving both the city and the Urban Renewal Agency budgets in 2 meetings, including tonight. We have scheduled a third Thursday evening meeting if necessary, but hopefully we won't need to use that. As such, our presentation is going to be high level, kind of summary based for brevity purposes. Of course, we are happy to address questions and drill down further, giving you more details pertaining to any part of the proposed budget that you would like. We want to ensure, staff wants to ensure that you all have the information needed to approve, to consider and approve the proposed budget. So as your budget officer, it is my pleasure to present the City of Canby's proposed fiscal year 2021-22 budget in the amount of $31.9 million. This is the total of all 11 city funds, and it represents an increase of $4.26 million from the prior year budget. This is a balanced and legally compliant budget. The budget is the city's business and financial plan for the fiscal year. It is intended to represent the priorities and goals of the City Council, residents, and stakeholders of the city. The annual budget is the city's plan for providing the vast array of services and programs for community safety, livability, and quality of life purposes. It determines not just what services and projects are going to be provided, but to what level. It's intended to be a transparent process and document that ensures fiscal responsibility and accountability for how we collect, allocate, and expend funds. Over the past year, we as a city and a community have dealt with extraordinary challenges. We have had 3 full emergency events, including the still ongoing COVID pandemic, wildfires in the fall, and then capped off with a devastating ice storm in the winter. While continuing to deal with the ongoing COVID impacts and the protocols that go along with that, while also responding to the two other emergencies just mentioned, the city has continued to provide services and has been responsive to the needs of our community. This is a testament to the leadership of our mayor and city council, the dedication of our city staff teams, and the continual rallying of our community members throughout this process. In my fairly short time with the city, I have come to understand what the term the Canby way truly means. Some highlights of our accomplishments over the past year, just a snapshot of some things that we have done and accomplished. And this is not an all-encompassing list, but first and foremost, we have continued to focus on our delivery of core, essential, everyday services. That is kind of job number one. We have maintained a strong police department, providing for the safety of Canby. We continue to be ranked as one of the safest cities in Oregon, according to multiple publications, seemingly year after year. We quickly pivoted to providing services in a wide variety of manners with especially with the COVID protocols and the other emergency issues. This includes the virtual and remote working situations. Though we've had our fun with the Zoom technology tonight, it has actually worked fairly well for the most part, but we have certainly done all we can to continue to provide our services. The city has supported local businesses, community organizations, and individuals financially impacted by COVID through the Canby Resiliency Grant Program. We have initiated the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update process. We updated the Transportation System Plan in preparation for the future industrial park to 99E Connector Road. We have processed many residential and commercial land use planning applications. We completed park improvements at Locust Street Park, and we have installed a new spray pad at Maple Street Park that we hope to open this summer. And again, all of that pending COVID restrictions, but we're optimistic that will be open hopefully in the near future. We have assisted in the transition of multiple new and existing businesses to the city of Canby in our industrial park. We've initiated the process of exploring a new permanent location for the Canby Area Transit. We'll be bringing that forward to our council in the near future. We have completed some upgrades to the HVAC system at our swimming pool. We have also initiated exploration of a renovation project at our pool, also going to be bringing that forward to the council for consideration soon. We have approved and initiated the Downtown Arch and Quiet Zone project. We've completed the new primary clarifier project and other site improvements at our wastewater treatment plant. We've successfully negotiated a new AFSCME collective bargaining agreement, which will be brought forward to our council for ratification at the next meeting. These are just a few, and there have certainly been other. I do not intend to leave out any of the other accomplishments, but those are just some highlights of what we've accomplished this last year. Focusing forward, oh, there's a question. Chair Patton, do you want to call on the question?
Nope, I apologize. He answered me in text.
Oh,
Yes, there was a question whether we were at quorum, and the answer is yes, we are at quorum.
great, thank you. So focusing forward, the 2021-22 proposed budget is mainly what we would call status quo from an operational perspective. There is some increase to our FTE, our full-time equivalency. That is related to filling the long-standing Public Works Director vacancy, proposed adding a new Deputy City Director, City Recorder position, and adding some seasonal employees for parks, cemetery, streets, and sewer. Otherwise, operating activities will remain essentially the same as 2020-21. The proposed budget anticipates contractually negotiated increases in employee health insurance, salaries, and cost of living adjustments for all staff. With labor costs exceeding 50% of the city's overall operating budget, the continuation of a strong economy over the next 3 to 5 years will be an important factor in the long-term sustainability of current service and staffing levels. The budget focuses on continued delivery of our core services, including police, planning and building, parks, cemetery, economic development, library, swim center, municipal court, transit, streets, wastewater, stormwater, administration, legal and internal services such as finance, HR, and others. This budget also focuses on, in particular, on street maintenance and capital improvements, and it emphasizes addressing park needs and continued investment in our infrastructure. Our city has seen strong revenue growth over the past few years as the economy has remained strong. This continued to be true in most areas of the city, despite the impacts of the COVID pandemic. Overall, the city of Canby has fared reasonably well from a financial standpoint through the pandemic. There are a few areas where revenues took a significant hit, including pool and library revenue, as they were closed for the majority of the year. Our state highway funds also had a significant reduction. However, with the anticipated American Rescue Plan, or ARP, federal stimulus funds that the city anticipates receiving, those revenues should be made whole. Commercial and residential development continue to be heavy, even with the COVID pandemic. While there are still some unknowns, the city has now gotten more clarity on the ongoing impacts created by COVID. A year ago, we were not sure how this was going to look, and we certainly feel more confident in our projections and what we're facing with the pandemic, and hopefully putting that in our rearview mirror. The major changes in expenditures from 2020-21 budget to the 21-22 budget include, so these are the major changes from current year to the next proposed year. Materials and services make up about 3.4% of the citywide budget increase. The majority of the increases are in the general fund and the transit fund. Capital projects and equipment make up approximately 9.1% of the citywide budget increase from last year over the proposed new year. This is reflected in the street fund, in which the capital projects for 21-22 will double from 2021, with the start of the 99E connection to Industrial Park project, as well as other street projects that will be taking place as a continuation of our street maintenance program. So again, significant investment in our streets and our infrastructure. The other is personnel services. Our personnel services budget for 21-22 reflects a 6.3% increase from the current budget, with significant factors being the PERS and healthcare increases and the addition of 1.62 FTE in the proposed budget. Personnel services costs make up 65% of the general fund budget and 36% of the total city budget. Though PERS costs overall increased slightly, the Tier 1 and Tier 2 rates actually decreased for our city due to some action that was taken last year. There was an investment of $500,000 made into a side account or an account that could be used to help to pay down our liability for PERS. So that was has turned out to be a very productive decision. Much of the personnel services budget impacts are guided by collective bargaining agreements or by state laws. The proposed budget funds a total workforce of 97.8 full-time equivalent positions. Again, as mentioned, that's an increase of 1.6 FTE from the current budget year. The net 1.6 FTE increase is due to some internal reorganization and the addition of, as mentioned, a proposed new deputy city recorder, filling our long vacant public works director position, and the addition of seasonal labor. We have done some internal appointments and reorganization of staff to creatively meet our needs. The city did not fill the former vacated assistant city administrator and HR manager position. Rather, a number of the duties of that position have been transferred among existing staff positions to directors. But rounding this out, recently the city attorney was also appointed as the assistant city administrator to help cover the remaining needs of this position. So, so some creative ways of covering our staff needs, resulting in what I think is a pretty modest increase as a 1.6 FTE increase. Strategic goals and strategies for the 21-22 budget. The goals set forth by the mayor and city council continue to form the guiding principles around which this budget is developed. The past year has provided us with some learning opportunities. Between the aforementioned pandemic, wildfires, and ice storm, the city has been faced with many different challenges. Most city offices have been closed to the public for over a year. All of our city boards, commissions, committees, and our council meetings, and including this one tonight, have been held virtually, while many staff had to adapt to working from home and the technology challenges that brought forward. The lessons learned are reflected in this proposed budget. As we go through this, as a reminder, expenditures primarily represent two key areas: operations and capital. Operations are the daily and routine services that we provide, while capital are one-time expenditures to invest in building, repairing, and replacing our assets. There are several one-time expenditures that we are proposing for equipment based on those lessons learned mentioned a few moments ago. And these include generators for City Hall, which currently does not have one and was not able to be functional during our power outage for a number of days during the ice storm, as well as replacing a very old generator at our Public Works facility. It adds a fuel station and it adds construction equipment for our Public Works operations. The aforementioned emergencies have, interestingly, have not negatively impacted residential and commercial development activities. Growth is continuing at a rapid pace, with development services working to keep up with the development demands. A continuing focus of the 21-22 budget is the funding of the programs that support current council goals to have a safe and friendly, family-friendly environment within the Canby community. Some of the specifics of this include: this budget maintains the expanded parks staffing based on increased revenue generated by the parks maintenance fee. The city is currently updating its Parks and Recreation Master Plan, Park System Development Charges methodology, and a rate study to define in 21-22 to help define a long-term funding strategy to support parks and recreation activities within the community. The budget continues to support tourism and economic development activities focused on bringing new opportunities to community residents and businesses. Economic development staff continue to find creative new opportunities to market Canby as a desirable destination for residents, businesses, shoppers, and visitors. Staff have prepared a 5-year funding strategy for the projects outlined in the Street Capital Improvement Plan. The budget includes year 1 of this funding strategy. The swim center operating levy will need to be placed, or will need to be considered by council to be placed on the November 21 ballot for renewal consideration by voters if it is to continue. This levy provides needed revenue to operate and manage the Canby Swim Center. Unfortunately, due to our restrictions related to the COVID pandemic, most of our popular community-wide activities, including but not limited to Canby's Big Weekend and the Canby Independence Day celebration, among others, have had to be canceled. And we continue to try to figure that out going forward for the remainder of this year. We've had to cancel again this year's Canby Independence Day event, and we're looking at whether we can hold the Canby Big Weekend this summer. The 21-22 proposed budget continues to reflect a level of stability in our current economic environment, and it anticipates that this environment will be relatively stable over the next 2 budget cycles. The key principles used to develop the budget, the proposed budget, are as follows. Continued focus on core essential services, investment in infrastructure maintenance, and alignment with city financial policies, especially in terms of using fund balances. One-time revenues will be used for expenditures or as contributions to reserves and will not be used to pay for established services. Julie will further discuss this in a little bit, but I want to briefly touch on the general fund and its fund balance. The ending fund balance in the general fund is projected to increase by 10.4% from the current year, the projected ending fund balance. This increase is due to new reserves from the sale of property and revenue from the aforementioned American Rescue Plan that are not yet designated as to how they will be spent. So these have not yet been allocated to programs or services. Operating revenue covers operating expenses. However, our normal target of operating reserves are decreasing to approximately 28% of operating revenue in the proposed budget due to the one-time purchases as described, as previously described, as well as a few other things here that I'll mention. In human resources, we're proposing a full compensation study that has been overdue for many years. In our planning department, we're looking at an economic opportunity analysis that will be grant funded, for permitting software and comp plan feasibility studies, as well as additional costs for traffic studies related to new development. And also, I've mentioned previously, City Hall, substantial one-time costs for adding a generator for backup power in case of emergencies. Regarding the reduction of the general fund's ending fund balance to 28%, we anticipate that this will be back at or above our target of 30% by the end of the 21-22 fiscal year. Also, the city is continuing to work on long-range funding strategies for providing services and meeting our capital improvement needs. In conclusion, regarding my budget message, this proposed budget presents a balanced and reasonable spending plan for fiscal year 21-22 that reflects the priorities, policies, and goals of the Canby City Council and the residents and stakeholders of our city. Canby continues to be a financially sound organization due to the city's continued proactive, responsible, and historically conservative approach to budgeting. We will continue to adjust and adapt our expenditures plan as needed to remain fiscally sound, even while we adjust to new and varying needs in our efforts to provide excellent customer service to our community. We rely on diverse revenue sources, and we have equally diverse expenditure patterns. Prudent fiscal planning has contributed significantly to the positive fund balances on which the city relies. And a lot of that is due, again, to the good work of our mayor and city council and their leadership, as well as you, our budget committee members. And I thank you again for that. With that, I will conclude my budget message, and I'd like to now turn it over to Julie Blums, Finance Director, to provide detail on the proposed budget, unless there are any questions. Nope. Okay.
Excuse me, good evening.
Has a question.
I'll wait until Julie's done. I'm happy to hear the rest before I ask my question. It might answer them. And I don't want to do, redundancy.
Okay, I just,
Councilor Hensley, did you still want were you still looking to be recognized, or are you good for now? I'll take that as a good for now.
had her hand raised, and so that's all I was worried about. I'm good.
Who had their hand raised?
I do.
Oh, okay.
But I'll wait until Julie's done, and it's possible she'll answer my questions. I don't want redundancy, so.
Sounds like a plan. Go ahead, Julie.
Okay, before I get into the meat of this, I want to make sure, were there any follow-up questions from the questions and answers I sent out that came in preliminarily from the committee members? No? Okay. All right. So we're going to start with the general fund tonight. And we're going to start on page 53. This is our administration department. And a lot of what I'm going to say, Scott has already kind of touched on. So one of the questions that came up in the preliminary ones was why the increase in personnel services in this fund. And this is really due to how we allocate our staff time. So last year, our city administrator position was vacant for 6 months at least, 7 months. So that had a lower cost. Our city attorney was allocated more to court as the city prosecutor. We have now contracted that out. So his time is back into the administration department. And with bringing on an actual public works director or an interim, before the allocations for the city administrator and assistant city administrator were spread through them for public works purposes. And now that we have a public works director, their time is now back into administration. So other than the deputy city recorder, there is no new bodies. It's just how we allocate their time between the different funds. Professional and technical. So in this line item, this includes our records management system and minutes, transcription of minutes that we pay for. I know Council President Hensley had some questions about mayor and city council line items. And those line items, they're more this year because, especially the training. So last year, the LOC conference would have been in Salem. And so we did not budget for overnight stays. And so the budget was less. And then it turned out nobody got to do training at all. So that's why this is increased. Is the conference is scheduled to be in Bend this year. So we have budgeted so that all 7 counselors can go if they choose to.
Julie, real quick, Counselor Hensley, you have your hands raised?
It's a significant increase in not just the travel and training. I see that we've gone from the last time we actually went anywhere, $56.33 to $8,000, but just the line item of mayor and city council, the highest year of 18-19 was $6,500, and we've gone to $98.10. And so from last year, that's a 78% increase. I'm just wondering, what does this line item actually encompass? The mayor and city council line item, what is that paying for? I'm sure it's more than just our little $100 a month.
Yes, it is for the ads we have to post in the newspaper.
Okay.
It is for attending the Clackamas County dinners, chamber luncheons, and then we also have money in there for a facilitator for goal setting.
Okay. Yeah, I asked because when constituents see that, they see a 78% increase in something that comes to us, the elected officials. I want to have an educated answer on what that goes to. So thank you, Julie.
Yes.
Okay, if that's it for that one, Counselor Spoon.
Yeah, I'll back that. It's been a couple of years probably since we had a facilitator for the retreat or goal setting session. Do you know what the cost for that is so that we can account for the difference? Because it sounds to me, Councilor President Hensley, like that sounds to me like the difference is having a facilitator, which we haven't had in a few years.
Yes, and we have budgeted $5,000 for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and real quick, I just wanted to let folks know per previous years, I do have a pad here for parking lot items. that come up if we need to do some more research should a question come up. With that, we'll go back. If nobody else has any questions, we'll return it to Julie.
Okay. Other than those items, again, this administration budget is pretty much status quo. It accomplishes our normal operational duties to run the city. So are there any more questions on administration before I move on? Jason, Sarah has her.
No, I don't see any other questions.
Councillor Spoon has her hand up.
Oh,
I have a question just about the budget in general and about reserves. Can we address that later? We're getting into the more line item, and I just want to make sure. I have a question about reserves in general, but is there a point in time when that would be more appropriate?
We can either do it now or we can do it at the end of the general fund. It's up to you.
I can do it at the end of the general fund, so it makes more sense. I just want to make sure I don't lose place. Okay, thank you.
was there anybody else? I'm just scanning through here to see if I see any hands. Okay, I'm adding that to the parking lot, and I think you can take us away, Julie.
All right, and we're going to move on to page 55, which is the Human Resources and Risk Management. Excuse me, sorry, need a drink. The Human Resources and Risk Management Department. As Scott had said earlier, the big item in this department this year is we've budgeted to do a compensation study. I don't know when the last time one was actually done, and I've been here for 5 years, so it's been quite a while, and it's definitely something that is due and time to work on. So we have money in there for that. That's really our big project in this department for next year. We have put some money back in for staff appreciation if we're able to do our holiday party again, since we haven't been able to do that due to COVID. So otherwise, again, this is status quo. I think Councillor Barwick has a question.
Yeah, Julie, on professional services, we go, and I'm sorry if I missed this earlier, my laundry room started flooding, so I had to jump off of here for a minute. We go from 10,500 last year to 111,500. Is that a typo, or are we really adding $100,000 to professional services? And if so, what are we spending $100,000 on?
It is not a typo. That is where the compensation study is budgeted. And we budgeted $100,000 for the compensation study.
Okay, so we don't have a special line item for the compensation. It's just under professional services.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Anybody else? I don't see anybody. Okay.
All right, we're on to my department, on to finance. We have a new contract for audit services. Our contract was up, and we had used all of our extensions. So we did an RFP, and we only had one respondent, which happened to be our current auditors. So there is a slight increase there for audit services. A lot of that is due to all this federal money we're getting. We have to do compliance audits. It's called a single audit when you get federal money, and it is a lot of work and takes a lot of extra time on the auditor's part. So the costs are higher because of all the federal money we've been receiving, having to keep track of. So that's a increase for us. Did put money in for just in case for my check printer if it dies. It's, I don't know, 100 years old. So we're hanging on by a shoestring here. Other than that, we are proceeding as normal in our department. Questions? I don't want to go too fast, so you guys speak up.
I'm just going through here. It doesn't look like anybody has any questions regarding finance.
All right.
Okay.
Well, court's going to be even shorter. So their budget is absolutely status quo. They have nothing but added back their training since they weren't able to do any training in this current year. The one thing you will see is this is one of the areas where we have a revenue reduction because of COVID. So we will be shoring up that revenue or making it whole from the American Recovery or Rescue Plan. So this is one of the areas that some of that money will get allocated to is to court, because we did see a significant drop in our court revenue. Councilor Parker's got a question.
Just in general terms, how self-sufficient is the municipal court operation in terms of its revenues and expenditures?
In a normal year, they pretty much cover their costs.
It looked like that's good for him. Anything else regarding courts? Melody, not trusting my microphone. Court appointed attorneys from 2018. Why the increase? Oh, hold on a second. It went away. Let me get the chat back up here. Appointed attorneys from 2018. Why the increase, doubling essentially? Do you get that? Julie?
City of Canby went dark. Are they there?
Oh no. Oh no. Oh my gosh. Maybe they need that generator sooner than later.
Oh no, they've left us on our own. Uh-oh.
Yes, it
Oh,
says
so
that Jason is now host.
Jason, you have all the answers, right?
No, I do not.
Well,
This happened for the Citizen Budget Committee members. This happened last week. Now we go. Here they are. They're back.
okay. I second Melody's question. I'd like to know the same thing.
Okay,
Same
Julie,
question, Melody.
City Hall. You're muted. You're
There you go.
unmuted now. Can you hear us?
I think I've got the question.
Okay.
So the increase is due to having a contracted prosecutor instead of having our city attorney do those.
Well, court appointed, not the prosecutor, the
Yeah,
defense attorney.
it's
Yeah.
all line item. Our defense attorneys and our prosecutor are all in that line item.
Perfect. Thanks.
We should maybe relabel that line item in the future then so it's clearer.
Yeah, because I know that as a council, we authorize like a contract for prosecution to give Joe some additional time to do our other needs, but it should be probably itemized differently. I would agree with Councilor President Hensley and Melody there.
Does that make sense, Julie?
Yes, I'm making a note.
Awesome. Any other questions regarding court? Okay, doesn't see anything. You can go ahead and move on.
Your mic seems quieter now, Jason.
I'm sorry, what?
You're very quiet.
Your microphone is like dim. We can't hardly hear you.
It might be because I became the person leading the call. Perhaps that's a problem.
Just
Um,
yell at us. Yell at us.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can't yell too much because I'm in a hotel and my boss is right below me, so I can't get fired. So anyways, I think, Julie, you go ahead and I'll try and figure out how to turn my microphone up, I guess.
Okay. So moving on to the planning department, as Scott had mentioned earlier, they have several projects that they're embarking on this year. One thing of note is they are finally at full staff. Yay! They're very happy. So we have a full staff going there. They are going to finish our economic opportunity analysis. We got a grant for that this year and we started it, but had to put it on hold due to issues with the grant from the state. They wanted to continue it into next year. So they'll finish that project. They have put some money in here for comp plan assessment of what needs to be done to update our comp plan and how we're going to go about doing that. They put money in for feasibility of some permitting software. They're looking at maybe partnering with the county and their permitting software. So this is just money to figure out where we need to go and what the best solution will be. And then traffic studies have gone up significantly. This is due to development. We have more development going on. So we increased the budget for traffic studies, and we also get money for those. The developer pays for those as well. So this equals about 12 traffic studies for the year, roughly.
Okay, I see. Is that better? Any better on the volume?
Yes.
Okay, haha, I figured it out. So I saw Melody, you had a question?
Yeah, does the city pay for a portion of the development traffic study? So when a development is required to produce a traffic study, the city pays for part of that?
If they want our company to do the traffic study, they will pay us, reimburse us for the cost. So you'll see on the revenue line up at the top, it matches the expense line at the bottom.
It's a pass-through.
Does that answer your question, Melody?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Hensley, you had your hand raised. Councilor Hensley, you're muted.
Thank you. If I missed the answer to this already, I apologize. I'm noting the significant increase of roughly $50,000 in professional and technical services. Can you remind me or at least address it if it wasn't addressed, or remind me if you already addressed it?
That is where the costs of these different studies are budgeted. So the economic opportunity analysis, the comp plan, and the permitting software, those are all in that line item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, scrolling through here. Is there anybody else with a question? I
Yes.
see Jack, go ahead.
Yes, what is the construction excise tax and what can it be used for?
This is a tax that was implemented quite a few years ago. I cannot give you the exact date. And it is a tax on development. There is in the code, there is no restrictions on its use. It has been used for different things over the years. It has been used for police. It's been used for streets. And a couple years ago, we moved it into planning to help offset the planning costs, because we are not 100% cost recovery on our fees for development.
Does that satisfy your question, Jack? He's shaking his head yes. Okay. Any other questions regarding this fund?
Councilor Spoon.
Huh?
Councilor Spoon.
Oh, I haven't gotten to her picture yet.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll quit doing a dance. I have a couple of questions. So obviously that particular line item covers the comp plan, the economic opportunity, and all of that. When do you anticipate, based on the funds we're setting aside, that we can have a new comp plan?
That will be determined with this assessment. So I can't give you an answer.
Okay, so I want to make sure I understand. So we're setting funds aside for it. Do we know, is that to do a study on when we can have a comp plan, or is that to save for a comp plan?
It's to do the preliminary work of what needs to be updated, what what the timeline will be, basically an outline of the process to get it.
So it's a plan for the plan.
Yeah, it's an assessment.
Okay. Great. And you have no idea if we spend this money when we could have a new comp plan?
I don't, but we can bring that answer back next week.
I would really love to know if we're doing a plan for the plan when we can actually have the plan. That would be great. My other question is, we were talking about traffic studies and whether or not our company was used or whether other ones were used. And so I think I understand that the fund is like a pass-through fund. If developers want to use our company, it's a pass-through for them to use our company. But do we ever challenge or have our own competing traffic study? Because I know there have been a lot of community complaints about the validity of the traffic studies that are done. So can you explain to me if we ever do our own traffic study with these funds, or if it's just basically a pass-through fund?
If we are doing our own internal traffic studies on our capital projects, those would come out of our professional and technical line item because those are the city. So they are not incorporated into that direct line item. And we do have a little bit of money in there this year for the tolling study for 205 to see what that impact would be on our highway or the highway through town if the tolling actually goes in.
Okay, here's my other question that I hope you saw coming based on everything I've said over the last 5 years. But when you say our company, do we actually have a contract with them, or do we have a preference that hasn't been contracted or RFP'd out?
We typically use DKS as our contractor for traffic studies.
Okay, but have we done an RFP with them or done a competing study, or is that what you're saying is our company, but is not actually our company?
I am not aware of the last time an RFP was done. Typically, the costs for these are under the dollar threshold to do RFPs.
Right. But based on the former things I've said, my preference would be if we're going to say our company as a city, we should actually have a contract or an RFP. I don't like the language of our company if they are not our company. So is it possible to do an RFP moving forward for these studies? Because I don't think they're technically our company. Is that true?
I understand.
Okay.
We
Is
do.
this a question or a planning question?
No, it is a question because she said the word like if they're using our company, and I'm just trying to understand the relationship between the city and our company.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can bring that back to you. We'll just follow up on that.
We'll bring that back to you.
Okay, no, perfectly fine. I understand. You know how I feel. I don't like the terminology our company if it's not our company, and I don't like the idea of that. So thank you.
Julie, this is Jason. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
As I understand it, there should be a time when a master traffic study should be done for the city. When is it proposed to do that? Or is that one of the items in here?
You are delving way deeper than
Then we're allowed?
well than I can answer.
Okay. Is that something we can put in the parking lot?
Jason, I would put it on the parking lot because that's a question Scott could answer. I'm pretty sure we are. Greg, aren't we due to do a traffic safety or traffic? Another team, aren't we supposed to be doing that soon?
I think I believe what you're talking about is an update to our transportation system plan.
That's right.
Yes.
I will need to verify that, but I think we are getting close to where that needs to be updated. I think there's been some discussion.
We're 10 years old, so I'm wondering, is that budgeted in this budget?
No, it is not.
Okay.
So I just want to, I don't want to speak out of order, but this is a concern that I have. So now I have served a few times on the planning commission, and the report or the study that a lot of these developers are using is within 9 years of its essential sunset. So it's supposed to look out 10 years or more of a set time. And we're coming up on when that's actually ends. And so they're using extremely old data to base where these developments and stuff go. I really think it needs to be prioritized that we get that updated. If not in this budget cycle, in the next one, because as much growth as is being projected in this budget, it's going to come back to haunt us.
We got it noted.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, look at that. I see everybody's face. I must have clicked something. Anybody other's hand raised?
I think Councilor Parker, Council President Hensley, and Jack do.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor Parker. We'll take you first.
Julie, I'm back on 62 here, and I'm trying to get back to that information. And again, I don't want to get stuck in the weeds. I just want to understand the big picture on whether the planning department pays for itself. You said that it needs a supplement from what sounded like actually a revenue stream into the planning department, but is there a backfill of general funds, or could you revisit that concept of what you were saying, that the planning department doesn't quite pay for itself?
Yes. And prior to moving the construction excise tax into the planning department's revenue, it did not pay for itself. So the fees we were bringing in were not 100% cost recovery for the costs for the planning department. Once we moved that revenue stream into their department, they do now cover their own costs with that revenue stream.
So that is the jump from 354 to 718.
Yes.
Thank you. And then the total park resources, that's a typo there on the bold line. Middle of page 62 says total park resources.
Yes, it is.
Okay. It's okay. I put these together too, and words end up in these places. Okay. Well, I worry that growth doesn't pay for itself. Then in the overall budget here that we've talked about, 200 new houses being built last year, and all of the industrial property coming online, all of those millions of dollars bring in less than $200,000 in additional property taxes. That's less than what it would take to outfit 2 Canby police officers. So in the 2 years I've got left, I'm going to be very picky about making sure that growth does pay for itself.
Oh dear, I think we lost the city again. Oh, no, they're there. But they're frozen.
They are frozen. Oh no, Scott's moving in slow motion.
Oh, Julie, Scott, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. We just got a message. Our internet is unstable, so bear with us.
Okay, did you get that question that from Greg?
Yes, I got his question, and I would like to respond. Our planning department is working on reviewing their planning fees, and they're doing some comparables with other cities, looking at what the true cost is to do each of the different activities. And we will be bringing forward probably some increases with the fee schedule coming up. And I think we're doing a work session on the 2nd of June to go over. Second?
No, for sure that's the date, but we're going to be bringing that.
Okay, we're not sure on the date, but we are going to be bringing a work session to talk about that, because we are trying to get a little bit closer. But one thing the city doesn't have is we don't have a cost recovery policy. So we don't have anything that says we want planning to pay for itself, or we want park pay for itself. We don't.
Scott, could you write one of those and have it on the next agenda? Okay, but we don't need to spend a lot of time on this. But Canby is a desirable place. And if we raise our fees a little bit, builders are still going to come here. If I had my way and it was legal, I'd make sure that the builders that live in Canby actually got a discount on all of our permits. And so that the out of city people that come in here and make a quick deal and leave, pay for the full cost of our planning operations. But that's enough. That's enough, Greg.
Duly noted.
I think Council President Hensley and Councilor Spoon have their hands up too.
Yes, and Jack, I believe you also are on the list, so we'll go with Councilor Hensley, then Jack, and then Spoon.
Thanks, Jason. Hey, I just wanted to not let this go. I wanted to make sure it ended up on the parking lot because I know that discussion will happen later, and if not this meeting, next week's about reserves. So if you would put it on the parking lot to revisit the TSP.
We've got it.
Yes, and that's actually one of my things I've written down here as well. Okay, moving, we'll take Jack next.
I'm going back to the traffic studies, some more questions. Do we just accept what the developers do at face value? Do we evaluate and review these? And if so, do we ever challenge any of them? Or is that all questions for the Planning Commission?
Yeah, we'll have to have our planning director speak to that. I know that if a developer does not want to use a company that the city can provide to them, they have to get their own traffic study professionally done. So, and that is submitted to the city. I don't know what the review process is from there, as far as if it's looked at by our engineers. I'm not sure. We'll have Dawn get answers to that.
Okay, I believe that's a parking lot item.
Yeah, that would be something, to put in the parking lot. That would be something good to know.
Anything else, Jack?
No, that was it.
Okay, Councilor Spoon.
Great points of information, both Jack and Tracy. My question, Julie, I apologize, goes back to Greg's question about whether or not planning pays for itself. And I understand that we do not have a cost recovery policy. However, you said that the difference was moving the construction excise tax to planning is the difference between planning paying for itself and not paying for itself. Where was it before?
Well, if you look back at 1920,
yeah,
their total revenue was $232,000. Their total expenses were $436. So they were about $200,000 difference.
I understand. But you said you moved the construction excise tax to planning. Where was it previously noted?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. It was in streets.
It was in streets. And why was it moved now to planning?
One, to help with to cover their costs. And we have very secure revenue sources in our street fund now.
My concern is that it's like a government shell game. That it's like, we're not covering funds here, but we're covering funds here. So now we're going to move this tax over here to like cover it. So I'll just like back what Greg and Jack said. I'm a little bit concerned that planning is only paying for itself because we played a little bit of shell game with taxes. So it used to be in streets and now it's not in streets, but I know from city council that now we're having to find funds to pay for streets. And so I'm a little bit concerned about like a shell game of moving funds to look like things pay for themselves when they don't really. So why are you saying that the reason it was moved from streets to planning is because we needed planning to pay for itself?
It was to help with general fund revenue so that planning wasn't using up so much of our general fund balance.
Was streets using general fund revenue? Because it was in streets before, right?
No, it was not.
You just told me it was in streets.
It was in streets, but it was not using general fund money.
So we moved this particular tax from streets to planning for what reason?
To assist with covering their costs so that it wasn't hitting the general fund's balance so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else? Any other questions regarding that? Counselor Hensley?
Thank you, Jason. I'm wondering, we're getting really into the weeds, which is fantastic. I like robust conversation around these items. But I'm wondering if maybe, Scott, we don't need to have a work session on some long-term planning on these things. Why isn't planning paying for itself? Is there a strategic plan we can put into place? We're going to be talking about, wanting to increase the street maintenance fee, which I'm not a fan of, especially since I'm now hearing that $400,000 could have potentially been in streets and now it's in planning. So I'm thinking this might be a work session item. The mayor's not here, but I'm going to request that. And I see that from Spoon and Tibbles. So Scott, can we work on that as a work session item?
Yes, we will work on that. I'll work on where we can slot that in.
Okay, because I think we're getting kind of into the weeds of long-term planning that isn't really the purview of the budget committee as far as strategy on how to take care of paying for things. So I kind of want to get back to the budget presentation.
I agree. Okay, with that, is there any other questions regarding this fund? I think we've beat that to death. We can go back to you, Julie.
Thank you. And we're going to move on to our building department. We contract out our building permits with the county. So they handle all of our building permits and we get a portion of that revenue. And it is used to pay for staff time that relates to stuff the city still has to do around building permits and that process. So we get about $80,000 a year. It's gone up because development's gone up, and so it is used for staff time for that process.
Is there any questions regarding building? Jack, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, if we contract out for the county, why are the FTEs increasing from 0.3 to 0.9?
It's a change in allocation of our planning department staff because they work in multiple things. And so this is just a change in the allocation of some of the staff time.
Okay, so we've moved money out of planning into building then.
We've moved staff time out of planning into building.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding building? Okay. Julie, go ahead.
Okay. We're going to move on to police. Page 65. So notable things this year are dispatch fees have gone up a little bit for this next year. Training, we budgeted more because they were not able to do much training in the current year, again, due to COVID. Their supplies line item, we're purchasing 4 AEDs for the cars. There's some lighting for their evidence room, replacing a security camera, and they're going to try to do their Citizens Academy again. So they're budgeting for that. So that's the increase in their supplies line. The traffic safety equipment line item, this is for a purchase of 2 dash cams 2 more dash cams for the vehicles. And then the vehicle line item, originally this was budgeted with 2 police cars, but we have recently learned that we have totaled, or I'm not sure when we did it, but a car was totaled. And it's going to take a few months before we can get the new one. So I had to budget for a 3rd car in here, but the insurance revenue is also in here to offset the cost of that vehicle. And then there's money in here for 4, I don't know what it stands for, MDTs, but it's basically the computers that go in the police cars.
Okay, are there any questions regarding police? Sarah, there, Counselor Spoon?
Thanks, Jason. Julie, I assume the shared SRO reimbursement increases because they weren't in person for part of last year. That looks like
Yes.
It makes sense to me. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. The miscellaneous revenue is anticipated to jump pretty substantially even from previous years. Where does that come from?
So this is, you'll notice in the budget column for 2021, we have 55,800.
Yeah.
This money that is slotted to come back to us from the radio levy that the county did a couple years ago.
Okay.
Each jurisdiction had to pay a certain amount out of their own funds. But when they were done, there was actually money left over. And so we were told we would be getting that money back that we spent out of our own funds.
Okay.
We were going to get it this year. We're going to get it next year. And then the difference is the insurance money for that police car.
Okay, great. And my other question is overtime wages. Why do you anticipate such a significant jump?
This is, a lot of it is related to grant funded activities. And
What does that mean?
so when they do pedestrian, what do they call it? I don't know what to call it, but Joe's back here, he says pedestrian sting. Or if they're dedicating time to DUIs, seatbelt enforcement, cell phone enforcement, there are grant programs that will provide money for those details. And so they've got about $22,000 worth of grant money in overtime related
So
to
that's offsetted by the revenues?
it's the majority of it.
Okay. Totally get that. Thank you for the explanation. My other question is in PERS contributions. We had a couple of retirements. Is that where that comes from?
There is an increase in our PERS rates this year. Or
Yeah.
Next year. And let me find the exact amount for you.
I know it goes up and down. I think it's just hard for people to understand. So it would help me to have like the language that you use in budgeting it, like why the significant increase.
So the police rate that the majority of our officers are under is going up 2.5%.
Okay.
So that's a pretty significant increase
Sure.
in our PERS costs.
Great. Thank you so much, Julie.
Is there any other questions regarding police? Okay, seeing none, Julie, will take it back to you for parks and cemetery.
All right. Well, first, did anybody figure out my puzzle? Really?
I did not know.
Okay. What's the top?
There.
Bud.
I didn't even know why that page was there.
Maybe it's because I don't know the variety of the flower. If that's part of the puzzle, then I can't get there, because as far as I can go is flower jet.
Well, it's
Bud,
definitely a
Jet.
dahlia bud.
bud, jet.
Budget.
Budget. Oh,
Oh,
gee.
budget. Yes, that's clever.
Oh,
See, I got hung up on dahlia because I believe that is a dahlia bud. So
Good job, Jason.
Julie just wanted to prove once and for all that finance directors can actually be fun.
That's right. A bunch more, but I decided not to get too crazy. All right, so on to parks. As Scott said earlier, we're bringing back seasonals. Last year, we were not able to bring on seasonals because of COVID. We didn't have enough vehicles to do the distancing that was needed. So we're bringing back some seasonals this year. We have money budgeted to work on the master plan. We are working on a covered shelter at Locust Park. We're trying to finish up that park. That'll be the last coup de grace of that park. It looks really beautiful right now. The new play equipment, the new sign. I am in love with the sign. So this will be the last piece to really making that park absolutely beautiful. And then we have money in here to start on the pickleball court at Maple Park. And there's also money in here, and this will show up in the fleet, internal charge fleet line. This is Parks' contribution to the new fuel tank out at Public Works. They are one of our biggest users of the fuel. So, but we're funding that with general fund money. We're not funding that with any parks maintenance fees. That's coming out of general fund.
any questions regarding parks? I have one real quick. I myself and many of the people that were elected to city council mentioned something about the dog park. I don't see anything in here. I'd like to get an update on where that falls into the situation.
When we have our parks master plan done, I can answer you. That will be part of that process.
I suppose that'll have to do.
Sorry. We're coming up on the end of our wait period after our ordinance has been approved. So we'll be scheduling our kickoff meeting with Green Play, who's the company we've contracted with. And at that point, we'll have a schedule, idea of when public outreach is going to happen, all those different components of it. And we hope to be done by December, January with that. And at that point, we will know all the projects that need to be done, when we're going to do them, how much they're going to cost, and how we're going to pay for them, and how we're going to maintain them. Those are all requirements of that master plan scope of work that we did.
Okay, excellent. Councilor Spoon?
Sorry, Julie, me again. There's a lot of requests from the community to put at least until the parks master plan is done, like a porta potty or two along the logging road, along the logging trail, because it's a heavily used path and there is no place to use the restroom unless you happen to be near Timber Park on the far end. Is there any room in this budget for us to contract that out until the master plan is done, at least for the summer while it's widely used?
I'll have to check with Jeff. And so I've got a note for that to bring that back next time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to cemetery.
All right. Cemetery, again, this is bringing seasonal help back on. We've got money budgeted for painting and repairs to the office out there. And we have budgeted $5,500 for a towable burial tent. The one they're using now takes multiple people to get it to the site and put up. And so they're looking at getting one that they can just hook up and tow to where they need it to be and not kill everybody's backs. So those are the big changes. Well, they're in cemetery for next year.
Bob, I see you have a question regarding cemetery.
Just a quick one. I don't believe in coincidences, so I'll ask the question. I noticed that the seasonal cost is the same for parks and for cemetery. Is that in fact a coincidence?
No. So we have budgeted 2 parks people and 2 cemetery people. We pay a flat rate for our seasonal folks. So it's the same for 2 bodies in either fund.
Well, without using the phrase body, it's 2 different people, right? All right. Thank you.
Okay. Sarah or Counselor Spoon, I see you have your hand raised.
I'm really trying hard to not have questions, but does parks get reimbursed for the bodies?
It's not charged to parks. It is charged to cemetery. There is no reimbursement because their time is directly charged to cemetery from the beginning.
Okay. Does that answer the question? Yeah, I understand. Okay, we're moving on. Any other questions regarding cemetery? I think we escaped that one pretty easy this year. We'll move on to Julie. Go ahead and take it away for economic development.
Yes, so we have a couple exciting projects going on this year for economic development. They received a certified local government grant to do surveys of properties that will possibly fit into future programming for the historic nature, whether they fit the historic nature rules or not. So they received a grant to work on that. They received a grant again to work on cleaning up headstones at the cemetery. And there's money in here to update their retail market analysis study as well. Otherwise, we've got money hoping we can do our events come next spring and summer. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Okay, any questions regarding economic development? Greg or Counselor Parker?
Sean was first.
Oh, Counselor Varwig?
Thank you. You mentioned the retail market analysis. Can you tell me what line item that's on and how much are we spending on that? I feel like we've done a lot of retail market analysis. So I just want to make sure that it's a wise spend.
Yeah, that is in, sorry. That's in the supplies line, supplies and services.
Okay, and did you say that that was funded by grant to do that, or is that just coming, is that general fund?
That one is not grant funded.
Okay, Scott, can we put on a work session later on to talk about that retail market analysis and what have we gained from the last 2 or 3 that we've done over the last few years?
Yes.
Thank you.
Counselor Parker?
Yeah, I agree with Sean. We do need to take a look at that. Although you could say that if you did a retail market analysis 2 years ago, the retail market has changed and perhaps fundamentally forever. This is fine for now, but I would like to have a study session taking a look at the city's policies on economic development. This may seem like an extreme position, but I'm wondering if the days are over when we want to go out and recruit large businesses that only hire people below a wage that can afford to live in Canby and then, in fact, can't find the workers. So I do think we need to talk about where we put our money For me, I'd rather put it into retention of existing building and of existing people who work here instead of bringing in new, large new developments that just end up competing for the labor. But I'll save that for a study session, but maybe you, Scott, you could get a 2-for-1 for Sean and me.
Yeah, we'll get that captured.
Okay, we have something from Melody. I believe, Melody, can you just talk or do you want me to read it? I want to read it. Okay, let me get to the chat. So her question is, I can't recall this detail from last year. If when Urban Renewal District closes, will a revenue stream be available for this fund? Question mark. Well, yeah, that's the question. I don't need to read that.
Yes, when the district closes, we will start getting tax revenue, our portion of the tax revenue that has been going to urban renewal, and that will more than cover the cost of economic development.
It looks like that's good. Any other questions regarding economic development? Counselor Spoon?
Hi, me again. So I want to agree with what Counselor Parker said about having a work session regarding our overall economic development plan and vision, but also I want to back Counselor Varwig. We've had a number of retail studies done, and I'm not entirely convinced there's been a plan to do anything with the information. And the last study, Counselor Varwig, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't only like 3 or 4 years ago. And I agree that the landscape has changed, but my ask would be, I am happy to authorize this expense if, Scott, you will make sure there's actually a plan to do something with the information we get this time, because I'm just not sure as we've done this in the past, that we've used that information to do any good. And so I think the landscape has probably changed since the last time we did one. I'm concerned about the expenditure, but if Scott can commit to making sure that we make good of it and actually implement a plan of action out of it, I can get behind it. Is that Sean, is that where you were at with it?
Yeah, I know of 2 that we've done in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And so I remember part of one in 16 when I had my store there. And so I just don't think that there's really been much that's come of it except for paint your buildings other color besides beige.
Beigeville. What they say, like Canby was Beigeville, that's our favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just hate spending money to get a report of what we should do, but we're not going to do anything about it. So if we're not going to do anything about it, let's just save the money. And so that's why I just want to do a work session to say, here's what we got from the last one, and here's what we will do with the next one. Because if we're just going to say, hey, everybody paint your buildings, let's just save the money.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page, Sean. Is like, I can get behind doing a new retail study because I do think the landscape of our town has changed in the last 4 years. But at the same time, I have a little bit of a history of like, we're doing these studies, but then we don't have an action plan behind them. So I guess my ask would be, I can totally get behind doing this study again, but my ask would be that Scott encourage an action plan behind it. Fair, Sean?
Yeah. We're saying the same thing. Cause yeah, if, like I said, I mean, it maybe has completely changed, but we all know that. So if we're just going to study how it's changed and still not do anything, we all know it's changed, so we don't need to do a study to find out what we already know.
Yeah. And I also agree with Greg on doing a kind of an analysis of economic development in general, but I can get behind the budget if we agree we'll do something with it. So thanks.
Yes, I agree with that as well.
So understood, and it sounds like we'll have a robust economic development work session at some point. I would suspect we won't move forward on the retail market analysis until we've had that work session. So we'll fold all the feedback into that, and we'll have a good discussion about that. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? I actually have something to add, and this is going to be a parking lot item. I have communicated a couple of times with Carol Palmer regarding the micro grant program. She has come to the city multiple times regarding this, and I do not feel that she has gotten a really concise answer on how this can be done. I would like she is planning to talk during the public comment section, and I would like to make sure that there is a clear and concise plan for whether we can actually entertain these grants or not. So she doesn't just go on for another year asking the question and not getting any sort of real answer. Does that seem like a reasonable request? Have
Yes,
I
sir.
agitated people so much they're not going to talk, or was I muted?
No, that's a reasonable request. But I'm just wondering, was she wanting to speak tonight or at the end of our processes? Because it
No, I
is,
think,
historically, we have tried to end these meetings at 8:30 and carry over if need be, just so everyone's not exasperated.
well, I do not believe that there is a public comment section on tonight's meeting, so it would be for the next meeting. Okay? I see writing. Thank you very much. Moving on to, if there was anything, was there anything else? Okay, then we will move on to not allocated.
Okay, so this department is basically captures all of the things that are not directly related to any particular department in the general fund. So this is property tax revenue, franchise fees, things that are not generated by individual departments. And there's also costs that are not related to individual departments. And the increase this year is what Scott talked about earlier, for a generator for City Hall. We put in $500,000. We don't have a full estimate yet, but we're hoping that's safe. Just because of the size it's going to have to be to run City Hall and pouring pads and installing everything. So that's really the increase this year for our expenditures. I also want to talk about the reserves, since several of you asked about this. So, and I know Councilor Parker asked about this as well in his preliminary questions. So we have money that will come in from the sale of our old library, and we have money from the American Rescue Plan. So the money from the American Rescue Plan that we can use to make whole our lost revenue in this budget has been allocated to those departments already. So the money that's left in this reserve is really the excess of that revenue. And we pulled it out separately because we still don't know exactly what we can use it on. I did do a webinar yesterday with the National League of Cities because we've gotten Treasury guidance earlier this week, some preliminary guidance, and we're waiting for more. So we called it out separately and didn't want to just incorporate it into our normal ending fund balance calculation, because we don't know where it's going to ultimately end up. And that's the same thing with the library, sale of the old library. There have been no decisions made on what those funds are going to be used for. So we wanted to make sure we pulled those out separately where they were very visible for everybody to know that those are just kind of holding places until we can decide and council can decide on what those funds are going to be used for.
Okay, are there any questions regarding this fund?
Councilor Spoon has one.
Yes?
You know,
Councilor Spoon?
I had a question about reserves. I swear there will be a fund I don't have questions about someday. So what is I have expressed this to Council President Hensley, that I have concerns that we are either overtaxing or underserving our citizens, or a combination of the two. So what's the professional organization's recommendation on reserves for a municipality?
Well, in our financial policy currently states between 30 to 40% of our operating revenue.
Okay. And was that policy, when you say our current financial policy, was that passed by a plurality of a council at one point, or where did that policy come from?
It was discussed with our budget committee and our council, and it was passed on in December of 18 by resolution 1307.
Okay. What is the professional organization's recommendation on amount of reserves for a municipality where we're not overtaxing or underserving our citizens? Because I was under the impression from our previous administrator that was between 10 and 20%. And I'm just concerned that I'm concerned that we're making an error. Maybe I have bad information, but I'm just trying to get the best information.
So it varies depending on the municipality, but what we're finding, I attended a conference this spring where this was a topic of discussion, was reserves with different cities, and everybody was very happy with our level of reserves. And I think now that we've gone through 3 declared emergencies this year, we have a much better idea of what we would need to fare an emergency. And I think this is an area where we will want to probably come back to council or the whole committee and talk about possibly changing that piece of our policy and possibly lowering that, because we did fare well through 3 emergencies, and that's what that money is supposed to be for, it's your safety net.
Yeah, it's our like rainy day fund, right? Our safety net. Scott, could we have a work session on maybe like readjusting or reconsidering our overall reserve amounts? Because I'm okay having a healthy reserve. I don't want to overtax our citizens. I certainly don't want to underserve them. And I'm concerned that maybe we haven't found the right balance yet. Is it possible we could have a work session on that?
I will put that on the work session list. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge it's this is a council policy that was set. So the council, perhaps with input from the budget committee, but the council, it is your own policy that was enacted. I think Julie said 2018. So you would have to review that current policy and decide whether you wanted to change that.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. I think we've experienced some things in the last year that might let us realize we might need as much as we thought we needed when things were a little bit simpler. So I would love to just revisit it as a large group and all have input on it. But I don't want to overtax and I don't want to underserve and I don't want to hoard tax money. So finding that balance would be great. And at least having a conversation about it, I think would be ideal.
And just for the committee's information, the financial policies start on page 112 in your budget. So they are in here if you want to read what the current ones are.
Okay, Councilor Spoon, I had put down here that item on the parking lot. Does that satisfy this line?
Satisfies it for me. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I've gone ahead and removed that. Is there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we will plot along here to library.
Jason?
Yep.
Would you take a 5-minute break?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was gonna, you are right. I apologize. I think we'll go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break. And then that means we'll be back here in 8:02. Let's say 8:02. Be back on here.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay,
We can do it.
that's the consensus. Go ahead, Julie.
All right, we're gonna go to the library fund. So in their revenue, again, this is one of the funds that had revenue loss due to COVID. So that will be made whole with the American Rescue Plan. We're projecting, or they're proposed, the county taxes that we're looking at, the estimate we've been given from the county for next year is just over $1 million for the library. And as we've done for the last few years, we have budgeted that interfund loan from the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund to the library fund to cover their cash flow needs for the first 6 months of the year, since their taxes don't come in until January. At that point, they will pay back and the interest will be made whole with the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund. As far as expenditures, really there's no changes in their staffing other than just increasing a little tiny bit of their on-call staff. There's a change. The difference from the current year to last year is we have several people who've elected benefits that haven't in the past. And so that's why you're seeing a difference in cost, even though there's no increase in people. The other thing to note is that the transfer from the general fund this year did go up a little bit again to cover. So what we did last year was we transferred the amount of the admin overhead. So it basically canceled that out to help with funding for the library fund. And that is what we have done for this year as well, as we are proposing a transfer to cover their admin overhead. And you know, this is an area where we might have an opportunity for that $500,000 from the sale of the library. One idea that has been floated is if we were to put it into the library fund and designate and say, you can spend $100 or $100,000 a year, we could use that to offset the transfer we have to bring in from the general fund to shore them up each year. So that is one option for that money, which would help the general fund and it would help the library fund both. I see a couple hands. Jason, you're muted.
I'm not muted anymore. Who's got their hands up?
Counselor Spoon.
Counselor Spoon?
It's always me, but this one was half answered. So one of my concerns was that I feel like we're doing this interfund transfer in perpetuity. And I'm trying to figure out how to get away from it because the library pays interest and it just seems like a sinking cost. Every year we do an interfund transfer. Every year they pay interest on it. Like we have the same shortage every year. I have no problem moving general fund to the library. I believe the library is a worthy cause. But is our only hope to get out of it to use the sale of the old library? Because I would really love to hear an alternative. I would love to use that capital money for a more efficient cause, but is there any other hope to get out of it than that? Or is that just like the lot we're left with?
At the moment, it's the lot we're left with. I mean, there's always options to raise revenue. You know, we could do our own local option levy. You could fee.
If we use the money from selling the old library to stop this cycle of madness of interfund transfer, are you saying that it would take about 5 years? Because you said it would take about $100,000 a year or whatever. Is there like we would only have to use X amount of funds to stop that madness?
It was just an idea that if we designated $100,000 a year of it goes. So if we transferred the $500,000 to the library, we could say that you only get to use $100,000 a year so that it can last over a 5-year period. That would help offset the money that we have been transferring from the general fund to the library. It wouldn't cover it completely, but it would help offset that much.
But then in 5 years, we'd be doing an interfund transfer again.
Yes.
Yep.
Or
We'd have another.
take some time
option.
to solve, you know, that maybe we may be looking at something that's
Maybe that doesn't make sense to me, because I thought the reason we were doing the interfund transfer is because of the timing of the tax deposit.
There's two transfers. There's a transfer from the general fund
Right.
that stays in the library fund. And then there's the interfund loan from the cemetery perpetual care fund that is, we simply do that due to cash flow for the library fund. Since they don't get their main source of revenue until January, they don't have enough actual cash to operate from July till January. So that's why we do that interfund loan.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So my question is, if I'm okay with giving some general fund money to the library, let's take that off the table. I'm okay with doing that every year. I think the library is a worthy cause. What would it take to stop having to do an interfund loan from the cemetery? How much of the capital from the old library sale would that take to just ride us, so like correct our course so that we're not constantly off cycle?
Pretty much all of it.
All of it. So if we applied all of it, then we would never have to do an interfund loan again? I
won't say never, but
okay.
It would cover us well into the future. The loan we do right now is for $500,000. And that's
every year.
Yeah.
And how much in interest does the library then pay back to the cemetery?
Well, right now interest is really, really low, so it's not a lot. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head.
Can you give me like an estimate? Or can you come back with it next week? That would help me.
Yes.
Okay. Because I would love to not pay interest, but I also don't want to use $500,000 to not pay interest. I'd love to be able to figure that financing out. Thank you.
Anybody else for library? Jack and then Greg.
Okay, this funding of the library has been an issue for many years. At one time, we had a study of where other cities were at and whether the county library fund, which is a permanent levy, so it can increase. So what we're stuck with is every year we get a transfer and every year it increases because costs increase and the county revenue can't increase. The assessment can't. So where do other cities stand, and is the county looking at doing anything about it?
we take that.
I'll let Scott handle that one.
Actually, there's been some recent discussion about that very question. That's a great question. A couple of things on that, and this, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole here, but at a high level, I would say two things. One, every city in the county makes its own choice. It's a policy choice or a budget choice for each city to either supplement the money that every city gets from the county library district fund or not. Some do a lot, some do a little, and some I think do none at all. So it's kind of a local choice. So it's basically we have a level of service that we're trying to hit, and in order for us to hit that, we have to supplement that by the amount that we're doing each year. The bigger question about kind of the longer term funding issue is, well, first of all, I want to say one thing on just a small clarification on your point about that, our costs of doing business keep going up, but the money from the library district doesn't go up. It is based on, there is a tax, it's property taxes, and there is a small increase every year. So actually it does go up a bit every year, but it doesn't match what our increased costs are. But there is among the county and the library group, there's been some discussion about forming a future task force to evaluate the funding mechanism for the library district, whether the rate should be considered to be changed at some point, whether there might be other things that the county library system needs to look at for funding. So There was just a recent meeting about that where that was actually discussed, but it probably isn't going, that discussion isn't going to happen for some time. It's kind of been slid out a couple of years. So I would say it's going to be at least a couple of years before that issue comes back up. I know that doesn't give a great solution to the issue, but that is the discussion that's out there.
Okay.
Okay, Counselor Parker?
Well, since we don't have the mayor tonight to say it, let me say it. Let's hop in the Waybank Machine, and in the meeting that the county commissioners decided on what the rate was forever on the library, I was there, and I was one of the senior staff that recommended a higher rate, but the electeds said we can't get it passed at that we need to have, in essence, we need to have a rate that isn't going to do the job in order to politically get it passed. Okay, that's one. Two, as my mother used to say, everything new is old again, even though she would say that backwards. That in fact, probably Tracy, maybe Melody remembers, that the city used to have an $800,000 allocation that was moved forward every year so that they didn't have to do the interagency fund. And I think I was one of the people who said, especially because we needed those general funds at that time, I was one who said, let's go ahead and borrow from the cemetery fund. But we could always go back to that again. But I think it was an actual budget policy decision that we were rolling forward $800,000 each year in order to provide the bridge between the beginning of operations on July 1st and when the county finally gets around to sending us our money.
Okay. I have something here from Melody. Due to the economy, is there, due to the echo, sorry, I thought I read that as economy. So is there a sale pending on the library property? How long was it on the market? She's trying to assess how soon or likely that option under discussion is going to be possible.
Early July. Okay. So I'll start with the answer, and then Julie, you can talk about the amounts that's parked in our budget, in the proposed budget. So the council did approve a sale agreement for that building. It's moving through the processes of going to close. And did you say early July? At this point, we're looking at early July. We're anticipating the closing happening and then the money being transferred to our fund. And then Julie can pick it up where the exact amount that we're sort of putting in did you put it in the non-allocated revenue? So it's parked in our non-allocated revenue. And what was the exact amount? Okay, 500,000 was the amount that we're anticipating parking in our revenue.
Okay, is there any other questions regarding that? It looks like that satisfied Melody's question. I have something I would just like to put out for the record. As you know, I'm a huge supporter of the library, and I would like to see maybe the council consider something like this where we actually create a reserve fund over a period of time for the library, considering the economy is doing so well here in the city, where every year for the course of 5 or 6 years, an extra $100,000 is moved into a fund that cannot really be used for normal purchases and stuff for the library, but sits there as their reserve that they dip into in order to cover the costs between the time that they start their fiscal year and the time that they begin to get their tax revenue. I think that would be a very good long-term plan that would help make the library a little more solvent, on top of giving them their regular $100,000 annually as support from the city. So I'll just throw that out there for you and the council to consider when you have your debate. And with that, is there any other questions regarding the library? No, moving on to transit.
All right. So in the transit fund, I've actually have quite a few notes on this one. So we have several grants that we receive each year, and I'm going to highlight a couple of them. Our STF grant, this is for elderly and disabled. It goes towards our dial-a-ride and paratransit. Our 5311 grant, this is technical transit speak. I had to ask him what that meant. It's for rural transportation, and that goes towards our 99E Express bus route. And in that, this year, there's actually CARES money in there as well. So transit, the transit systems have received quite a bit of CARES money separate from what the municipalities have received. And there's about $250,000 in there in additional CARES money to go towards our transit operations. We have a federal grant, federal capital money coming in. This is to pay for our bus stop improvements. We've got a city match to that. We've got our STIF money, and this pays for our Saturday service and our new city circulator that's going to be starting soon. We do have a new contract for our driver service. It's with First Transit. It's up for second reading next week. Our ordinances, the contract is before council. And there is an increase in cost. All of the RFPs they received had an increase in cost. The ATU union increased all of the wages by $3 an hour. So that had a pretty significant hit to the cost passed on to us as, for them as our vendor. We have $100,000 slated for some technology upgrades. This was, right now they're doing all their bus logs on paper. So we're hoping that we can maybe move into the 20th century and get things electronically. So there's a little bit of money set aside for that. We have budgeted for 2 buses. This is being rolled over from the current year. And we've already received the grant funds in the current year to pay for those. And then the big ticket item is we are going to start design and hopefully construction on our new transit office. As Scott said, that'll be coming before council pretty soon on one of these work sessions coming up. So we're really excited about that process. But that's the big item for next year. Councilor Parker has his hand up.
Yes, Councilor Parker, go ahead.
Julie, on page 79, halfway down, transit payroll tax, that looks like a projected increase of about $206,000. Is that because the rate is increasing, or we have more employees that are employed in town?
The rate is not increasing, and it is a projection based on what we're currently bringing in and looking at the new companies coming in the industrial park. So yeah, it is due to new business.
Okay, is there anybody else?
Councilor Spoon.
I had literally the
yep.
exact same question. So it's not a loss of jobs and it's not a rate increase. It's actually an increase in jobs during COVID, interestingly enough, right?
Yes.
$206,000.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else regarding transit? Okay, we'll move on to the swim center.
All right. So the swim center, again, this is one of the funds that lost revenue due to COVID since they were closed. So we will be making that whole with the ARP money. And the other big item that's not normal daily operations is they're looking at a remodel to redo their lobby, their restrooms, and the locker rooms, and to bring them, I don't think they've ever been redone. So it'll allow for better access, and I think that's coming before council next week, right? Yep. Okay, so there's a work session next week on this item with council. Otherwise, it's all normal operations for them.
Okay, is there any questions regarding the swim center? Seeing none, we'll go on to transit room, streets fund, please.
All right. So Scott touched on this earlier. We do have a reduction in our state highway funds and our local gas tax revenue. Those are two areas where we did take a hit from COVID. So we'll be making those items whole. We have money budgeted from the federal fund exchange. This is federal money that goes to the state that then gets passed on to municipalities for these types of projects. And it will be used on the Locust Street project this next year. We have some additional seasonal help. The street portion of that fuel tank, which is built into the internal service charge for fleet. Their portion is about $65,000. We have money budgeted for a front loader and to replace a 1989 pickup, which I believe Jerry said the only reason we're doing it is the seatbelts broke and we can't get replacements. So they keep their stuff a long time. Street maintenance projects, our basic streets, we've got about $700,000 this year. And then we have another $500,000 for South Redwood. Now this is a street that's being transferred from the county to us. There's 5 streets, I believe, that are being transferred, and this is the first one we're going to work on this next year. And the county is giving us money to help offset that cost. The Ivy Street, the other projects we have going this next year is our Ivy Street project that we're doing in conjunction with the county. Like I said, North Locust, North Knott, and the intersection at North Territorial and Redwood out by the shops. We have money budgeted for to start working on the industrial park connection to 99E. And there is a transfer to our sewer fund to pay a portion of some new equipment that we need that we discovered after the ice storm. Would have been very helpful. Again, it's the generator, forklift. We need to crack seal the parking lot out there, and they need to build a dump site for their debris. So those are the big items that we have going on for next year. And as Scott said, it did double what our capital projects were previously.
Okay, is there any questions regarding streets? Counselor Hensley, yep.
Yes, please. Thank you, Jason. I'm not sure if this was covered in the discussion about the federal fund exchange, if it's correlated. I'm just wondering, in the 2021 projected for miscellaneous revenue, we had nearly $1 million with $988,000, and this year it's only $50,000. So can you explain the difference there?
Yes. I think I explained this. Let me find my notes. Jack actually had this question as well. So in 2021, the 988,000, that is the ARP money. Part of that is the ARP money to make up our highway fund money and our gas tax money. Next year, we always budget a little bit for miscellaneous things like surplus, different, just one-off kind of items that they would get. It's mostly sale to surplus. In the prior year, that dollar amount was related to money from urban renewal to pay for the purchase of the property that we bought out by Walnut Street in the industrial park to go towards our connection to 99E.
Is there any other questions regarding street? Okay, I will chime in here. I know it's been mentioned that there is the talk of increasing the street maintenance fee on the upcoming council work session. Has that been considered in this budget or not? Hello?
Oh, I said no. It has not.
No? So I just gotta say, I'm extremely disappointed. Many times, not only in this meeting, but in other council meetings, it's been mentioned that, you know, we're not keeping pace with being able to maintain our streets. And I know that members of this council and members of the community don't particularly care for the street maintenance fee, but a lot of people put a lot of hard work into that program. And it's one of the few things that the city can actually do to help control its destiny with one of its major pieces of infrastructure. And the fact that we are going another budget cycle without making any sort of adjustment to it, essentially passing on tens of thousands of dollars that could have been raised in revenue through this because nothing's been done for many years, just is extremely frustrating to me, not only as a citizen, but as a member of this particular board. So I really hope that during the discussion, something is done to help with this because it is ridiculous.
Jason, let me clarify my no. There is no change in revenue budgeted in here. That doesn't mean that we are not going to come forward with a proposal that we're going to bring to the council to review for a possible fee change. But I didn't want to budget something that hasn't been approved.
And I'll add to that. We're tentatively looking at the way that the council agendas are slated out here for the next few meetings. The June 2nd meeting, I think this is tagged right now, or I think this is actually flagged right now as our work session item for that meeting. So June, we're looking at probably having a conversation with the council about the street fee on June 2nd. So I'll just refer you to that. I think Julie's absolutely right. That's really a policy decision, and we would need directive that was going to change before we could update anything in the budget. So we just have what it is today, but certainly that council discussion may or may not lead to some other actions being taken.
Well, I appreciate the update, and I'm glad it's finally coming up for discussion. I appreciate that, but I'm still extremely agitated, and I will continue to be agitated about it until something is actually done. Because I've been told that this was going to come up for discussion before, and something was going to be done, and nothing has happened. So I'm looking forward to actually seeing some action taken on this. Jack, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I'd like to know if we have a list of what street projects we'd like to do but can't afford to do at this point with the current level of the street fee. Does such a thing exist?
I would have to talk to Jerry. I don't know if there is.
Because I'm wondering if there's a big deficit it's time to start talking about maybe raising the street fee. If there's not a big deficit, then maybe we don't need to talk about it. I don't know, but until we know what we would like to do that we can't afford to do, that's one of the big things, I guess, that should be part of this discussion.
I'm making a note.
Okay, is there anything else? And I just did want to check real quick. Scott, I had sent you and the mayor an email with those numbers that I had presented in a previous meeting. I never received confirmation that those were received. Did you receive them from me or not?
Yes,
Yeah,
we did.
yeah. So we'll pull that into account. Thank you.
Because they're pretty close to what I came up with.
You see, some days I have my head screwed on tight and other days not so much. So I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so with that, my birds have chirped. We're at 8:30. We will go ahead and stop at the Streets Fund. Just as a recap, I want to read what I have as far as parking lot items. I have from Councilor Spoon, when might the comp plan actually start after the comp plan? I have asked for an update to regarding when the new traffic plan will come up. Councilor Hensley has reserves regarding the transportation system plan, correct? Okay, good, because I can't read that middle word there. From Jack, how planning reviews the self-done traffic studies. I have from Sarah, or from Councilor Spoon, potential for adding porta potties to the logging road, as well as putting her request regarding the general fund and the total budget back in the parking lot. Does that sound correct? And Julie, if you'd like, if you had missed anything, I can email you as well.
Would you please?
Yep, I can go ahead and do that. Was there anything I missed for folks on the call?
Nope. Do you need a motion to adjourn?
Nope.
Not adjourn. We need a motion to recess and reconvene on the 21st, correct?
So moved.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to recess this meeting until 6 p.m. on May 20th, 2021. Is that correct, Julie?
That is correct.
Okay, all those in favor signify by raising your hands. I have hands all around. Any nays? Any abstentions? None noted. With that, we will say goodnight, Canby, for the second round on the 20th.